The Baltimore Ravens make their splash. They officially signed running back Derrick Henry, formerly now of the Tennessee Titans. We talk about what it means for the Ravens, the specifics of the deal, why it's the perfect move, and a lot more. A lot to get to on this live edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, or daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, coming to you as always on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you so much for being here on this Tuesday afternoon, a Taco Tuesday, making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. So if you'd like to watch in video form on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video. Also, if you like the audio form more, you can watch or listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. We're 5 days a week of Ravens content, Monday through Friday, plus these bonus episodes when big Ravens news happens. And I'm pretty sure this news definitely required a live show. So we're going to be talking about it here today. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. They did it. The Baltimore Ravens did it. They signed Derrick Henry to a 2-year deal worth $16 million. That deal can go up to $20 million, I believe. This is a major move for the Ravens. We're going to be talking about everything. We're going to be talking about what it means from the offensive perspective of things, what it means for the running back room in particular, with Keaton Mitchell coming off of the injury and Justice Hill still being there, and who Derrick Henry still is as a player. So there is a ton to dive into, and it's really exciting, right? I think we saw the first day of free agency, all those running backs fly off of the board, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we're all kind of sitting there thinking, well, looks like it's Derrick Henry or bust for this Ravens team if they want to go after the big name, big time running backs. And the Ravens did just that. So I know we got a lot of excitement in the chat. I'm kind of hustling and bustling, trying to figure out everything that's going on here. We have a lot of excitement. Ravens win. Jonathan, Eli, Clifton, everybody in the chat. I'll try to get to as many as I can here. I'm sure it'll be moving here. But for Baltimore, this is such a huge move because we can talk about the value of the running back position and signing a guy or drafting a guy and having it be a cheaper contract. This Henry deal isn't necessarily cheap when it comes to running backs. It was less than what Saquon got, less than what Josh Jacobs got. But I actually predicted two things. I predicted Saquon's market and Josh Jacobs, his market was going to be more in the, anywhere from 9 to 13 million. And then Derrick Henry anywhere from 6 to 10. So I got within those ranges. I've gone 3 for 3 on my running back predictions. If you listened to me on the live stream yesterday or on the show today where we talked about Derrick Henry even more, I predicted Derrick Henry to the Ravens, Joe Mixon of the Texans, and Aaron Jones of the Vikings. And I went 3 for 3 on those predictions. So I guess I'm just inevitable. Well, my fourth prediction was J.K. Dobbins and or Dalvin Cook goes to the Cowboys. So we'll see if that happens and I go 4 for 4. But this was a move that I think the Ravens, if you're talking about moving a needle, Derrick Henry's a running back that absolutely moves the needle. I mean, just how do you defend him and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield? Obviously, everybody has to stay healthy on the offensive side of the ball. Lamar, Derrick Henry, the offensive line, wide receivers, tight ends, etc. But I see Christopher saying this is the perfect complement to Mitchell and Jackson. It is. It's like I've said it a lot on the show. It's like yin and yang, right? Where I feel like Lamar and, if you want to throw Keaton in this conversation too, it was the speed, the electricity, the elusiveness. But Derrick Henry just brings that raw bruising power. Gus Edwards goes to the Chargers. The Ravens slot in a better running back, in my opinion. Not that Gus wasn't good. I have a lot of respect for Gus and everything that he did for the Ravens. I'm a big Gus Edwards guy. But at this point, I mean, look, we have to admit that, in my opinion, you're upgrading at running back here from Gus Edwards, whose efficiency did drop off. He dropped off about 0.9 or 1 yards per carry, full yard per carry there. So that's a significant drop off to Derrick Henry, who we look at Derrick Henry. Let's just look at the pure stats. Let's look at the pure box score stats first. For Derrick Henry, last year he had 280 carries for 1,167 yards, and 12 touchdowns last year. A lot of wear and tear on the tires for Derrick Henry. He's been in the league since 2016, so He's played 8 years in the league, has 2,030 carries. He has not had a season below 219 carries since 2021, where he did have 219. That was he actually only played in 8 games. He was pretty injured that season. But he had 349 carries 2 years ago. And I mentioned those 280 carries last year. His career high actually was in 2020 when he had 378. That was his 2,000-yard season, had 17 touchdowns that year. That was his best season in the league. But a lot of people look at Derrick Henry, and I think they only see the north-south, right? I think they look at Henry, they see his big, but I mean, he's a huge guy too. I mean, just him standing there, 6'3", 247 pounds. This guy is a monster. And I mean, you talk about the Ravens and kind of what their MO has been, and it kind of shifted a little bit last year with Todd Monken. But the Ravens like to wear you down, right? They like to run the ball, wear you down. And I think, again, with Monken, we're starting to see different things where they're not just grounding and pounding for 60 minutes a game. Obviously, you're implementing the pass a little more, and you're having pass concepts, etc. But imagine trying to stop Derrick Henry. You know, the Ravens, it's a tight game. It's a physical game. And you have to stop Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter. And on top of that, you have to figure out, okay, well, Lamar Jackson's also a threat, both with his arm and with his legs. And on those read options, the RPOs, whatever the Ravens decide to do here, this to me just feels like it was inevitable. It just felt like the perfect fit for Baltimore. We'll be talking about that throughout the rest of the week. But it just feels like it was meant to be. There was a lot of rumors and rumblings and reports that for the Ravens and Henry at the trade deadline, that was going to be a big acquisition for the Ravens. But then the Titans apparently pulled out, and that didn't end up happening. And then I think everybody saw that happen and said, well, he's a free agent in the offseason. Wouldn't be shocked if he ended up coming to Baltimore to play with Lamar Jackson. And I think we might see a little bit of a Shaq and Kobe dynamic in Baltimore with the way that these two can play off of each other. It's the elusiveness, the electricity versus the bruising speed and power. But again, Derrick Henry is not just the bruising power. He's not the fastest running back in the league, but he's quicker than he looks, right? His size, you think, oh, he's just a lumbering guy. But no, he can move down the field. He's great in screen passes. He's taken screen passes to the house. I mean, we've seen him take those things like 99 yards. Jacksonville, Houston, he has made those teams look small. I mean, he makes everybody look small. He'd make me look minute next to him. But in my opinion, Henry gives you more than just a north-south runner. He gives you more than just power. This is not a one-dimensional player. This is somebody that can do multiple different things and has a skill set that has multiple different dimensions to it. So when you talk about him complementing Justice Hill, who is elusive, has that electricity to him, but also has that blend of speed and power, you know, I think you look, it's almost like the perfect three-headed monster almost. If you talk about Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell, and Justice Hill, Henry's more of the bruiser, but can bring you a lot more than that. Justice Hill is the blend of speed and power. And Keaton Mitchell, who I think impressed a lot of people, not only with his ability to go out there and be that elusive lightning in a bottle type player, but he also showed a lot after contact, right? Hitting the holes and actually getting yards after contact. That's not something that I think a lot of people thought he could do at the NFL level. But if you watched him in college at East Carolina, you knew he could 100% do it. So that didn't shock me. This is the perfect three-headed monster for the Ravens. I'd still expect them to draft a running back probably in the later rounds just because we don't know when Keaton Mitchell is going to end up coming back. We don't know if that ACL injury is going to keep him out for till the middle of the season, or is it going to be later in the year? But in my opinion, I mean, look, this is a guy, and I see Derrick Henry's top speed last year. If I remember what I'm reading right, I saw the post. I forgot where it was, but 80, or no, not, I wish it was 80 miles an hour, 21 miles an hour, which is incredible. And you look at the yards after contact per carry. Derrick Henry in 2023, 3.3 yards per carry after contact. 2022, 3.6. 2021, 3.3. 2020, 3.9. All ranked in the top 10 in the league. Now, the Ravens' yards before contact per carry as a team was 1.8, and that ranked first in the entire league. So you're adding a guy who already by himself was one of the elite yards per contact after carry players. You're adding that to a team that was literally the best in the league from 2020 to 2023 in that regard. So this to me is something where you're taking a guy's strength and you're amplifying it, right? Because we can admit Tennessee's offensive line was pretty horrible last season. Now, the Ravens have questions of their own on the offensive line. I'm not saying it's perfect, but this is something where you look at it And Baltimore just has so many different avenues that they can work this off of, because teams are going to have to worry about just so many different things now. Not that Gus Edwards wasn't a threat in the Ravens offense. Not that J.K. Dobbins wasn't a threat in the Ravens offense. But Derrick Henry is just a whole different animal. He's up there in age. I get it, right? He just turned 30. But in my opinion, this is actually another edition of the Florida Ravens, by the way. He was born in Yulee. So I think that for me, I think that Baltimore has an opportunity here to continue to round out their offense. And we'll talk about in the final part of the show and throughout the rest of the week how Baltimore can round out their offense and round out their roster in general. But yeah, Derrick Henry's max speed across 2019 and 2020 combined, 21.62. 2023, 21.68. He actually got faster as he got older. So this is somebody, you could say, oh, he's washed and this, that, and the other. He's not washed. He's not washed. To me, you look at the age, I think, and the way the running back position has been valued over the course of the past couple of seasons, even dating back a little while now. And you see a running back who's over 30 and you automatically assume, if you don't know who he is, oh, he's washed. And people know what Derrick Henry is, but they see the age and they say, oh, he's falling off a cliff. The Ravens are getting somebody who's washed. They're not getting somebody who's washed. Now, things can happen. Injuries can happen, this, that, and the other, right? We're not going to know exactly how it works out for them until the actual season starts and it plays out. But this, to me, off the bat, A+. This is not a deal that Saquon got. This is not a deal that Josh Jacobs got. I had always circled Derrick Henry if you were listening to me every day, I've always circled Derrick Henry as the most realistic option. Saquon would have been awesome. Josh Jacobs would have been awesome. But this, to me, is value with a player where you want to talk about Saquon and Josh Jacobs. I still think, honestly, Derrick Henry could be the best out of those three guys. And you're getting him for a lot cheaper overall and on a year basis than the Giants lost Barkley to the Eagles for, and the Raiders lost Jacobs to the Packers for. Coming up, still a lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. We'll be talking about what Henry can bring to the offense a little bit more. We'll get into chat a little bit, get your opinions and your celebrations as we continue to celebrate Derrick Henry officially signing with the Baltimore Ravens. Stay tuned. We have a lot to talk about on this live instant reaction Tuesday afternoon here on Taco Tuesday edition of Locked On Ravens. Don't go anywhere. Still a lot to dive into. First, this show is sponsored by FanDuel. And say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, whether you're betting on a big upset or the one seed. It's time to go dance on America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. We're back, our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still celebrating with you here on this Tuesday afternoon as the Baltimore Ravens do officially pick up Derrick Henry. It's a 2-year, $16 million deal, so $8 million average annual value there. So to me, this is a deal. Again, the value is there, the player is there, the production is there, the fit is there. I mean, what more do you want from a running back here for the Ravens? We know the Ravens are a running team, and we know that, look, a lot of people, I agree with this. A lot of running backs can succeed in the Ravens offense, right? A lot of people, if you're a running back and you come to Baltimore, there's a good chance you're going to have at least some level of success, unless you're not great. But Derrick Henry, again, you're adding one of the top premier running backs in this league to the top premier rushing offense in this league, right? It's a match made in heaven. I see, Henry and Lamar are going to be scary from Jordan. Eli saying Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell, JK, and Hill dangerous. I don't know if JK's coming back, Eli, but those three of Derrick Henry, Keaton, and Justice Hill, incredible. Josh says he's super happy. Yeah, Cliff, it was passionate. I do think that my opening for the show, this is what it's about, right? This is exciting, and the Ravens signing a guy like Derrick Henry, a lot of people weren't sure it was going to happen, but in my opinion, the fact that they did it shows a willingness to improve and get better, which I think that's what a lot of people want, right? That's what people who watch this team, who are fans of this team, who cover this team, that gives them the ultimate vote of confidence, is the fact that, yeah, you know what? They could have drafted a 4th round running back and been okay. They could have re-signed Gus and JK and been okay. But their willingness to go out there and spend money, and based off of running backs, a lot of money on a guy like that, is good. I see Kyle saying would have preferred Aaron Jones or Saquon. I get it. The fit in terms of, other skill sets is fine. I understand. And Aaron Jones ended up getting 1 year, $7 million from the Vikings. Saquon's deal was just, they were never going to do that with Saquon. It was just too much money. But for an Aaron Jones or a Derrick Henry or a Joe Mixon, those guys that were available, in my opinion, I think Derrick Henry moves the needle more. but I would have been fine with Aaron Jones. I mean, honestly, I would have been happy with Saquon too. Don't get me wrong. Rose saying, Kevin, thanks for doing the video. Yeah, I'm psyched too, Rose. I appreciate you tuning in. Alyssa saying that's what I need to get me through the day. I appreciate you tuning in, Alyssa, 100%. We have a lot, though, that comes to, and I don't know if any other particulars. I'm trying to, again, like peruse through Twitter and kind of keep up to date as everything goes. But you now have an offense of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and Mark Andrews. Those five, I mean, you have an elite quarterback, an elite running back, an elite wide receiver, a receiver with a lot of potential, has shown flashes, and an elite tight end. You have an elite center. You have Isaiah Likely waiting in the wings. We're going to see what the rest of the offensive line looks like. But at the end of the day, Baltimore, to me, this is a huge upgrade for them. I see a lot of people talking about the draft in the chat, too. I see Brian saying offensive line, wide receiver, one, and corner depth. Yeah, for sure. I could see them making moves like that. Jin saying now we have to shore up the offensive line in the draft. I agree with that, especially the offensive line market has been very lucrative. At least the guard market has been very lucrative, more lucrative than I thought it was going to be. So in my opinion, this is why the Ravens also had to make a move, in my opinion, for running back in free agency, because the running back class in the draft is just not that deep. And honestly, we're not going to see running back taken. I don't even know if we're going to see running back taken in the second round. Honestly, the first running back off the board could be in the third round. So I see Isaac Guerrero, Braylon Allen. I see Harry talking about those guys. Those are good players, but I think a Guerrero could be gotten later in the draft. But at this point, I don't think Blake Corum's coming to Baltimore. I don't think, one of the top other guys. But in my opinion, you still should draft a running back late just to have the depth there, or an undrafted guy, right? You find yourself another Keaton Mitchell, and that could have been just fine for them until Keaton comes back. You have that running back, the rookie is your third guy. Then when Keaton comes back, you just slot Keaton back in, and that's what it is. I see Baltimore get up saying draft a wide receiver like Brendan Rice, Malachi Corey, or Xavier Legette. Yeah, I mean, I can see what I would do. This is what I would do. I would probably try to sign a veteran corner in free agency. If Patrick Queen leaves, which I assume he's going to, I'd try to sign a lesser veteran linebacker. The linebacker market's been in the gutter, so I think you can actually get a solid one for cheap. But then with running back taken care of with Derrick Henry, I think you try to get one of the top offensive tackles in round one and move off of either Stanley or Moses. In the second round, you take a wide receiver or a corner, and then you take the other one in the third round. I think in the fourth round, you also look at edge. Edge is a big need for them. Are they going to bring back Jadeveon Clowney? Are they going to, I don't know, they're going to bring back Kyle Van Noy, sign a veteran? So in my opinion, look, it all starts up front, right? Derrick Henry's awesome. He and Lamar can do a lot by themselves, and they can kind of carry that load and make up for a lot of poor offensive line play, but they can't make up for all of it, right? You got to have good offensive linemen, a good blocking scheme, and I think that Baltimore has a lot. Yeah, Kimani Vidal, I see Baltimore get up. I mocked Kimani Vidal to the Ravens a lot. He broke records at Troy, obviously a smaller school prospect, but you can get him in probably the 6th or 7th round, and I'd be totally fine with that as well. I see Ravens win saying Voorhees will be a beast once he's healthy. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the Ravens will probably have to give one of those jobs for one of the guys on the roster right now. So is that Voorhees? Is that Ben Cleveland? We're going to see what ends up happening. I see Cam say, I'll never forget the 2019 playoff game against the Titans. I've never seen a running back dominate a good team like that. Henry ran all over us. And that was a good defense. Wasn't to the level of what Baltimore's defense was last season, obviously, but that was still a pretty solid defense. And Derrick Henry he gives so many problems. But I see Daryl saying, I don't care if we have Walter Payton in the backfield. You're not going to use him in the playoffs. It's irrelevant. I would be shocked. And again, I was shocked when they did it in the championship game, so I guess it's not totally impossible. You have to use – it feels like signing a running back like that and investing like that in a running back means that you have to use them, right? In the playoffs, you can't go away from a guy like Derrick Henry. You can't all of a sudden say, oh, well, our running backs aren't – they're not these – top-of-the-line guys. And I thought Gus and J.K., those guys are good running backs, but you can't ignore Derrick Henry. Like you can't do it. So I agree, Daryl. If you don't use them, it's a waste. But you have to use them if you're the Ravens. I really hope that they do. Ravens saying tackle is the most expensive position on the field outside of quarterback. Drafting our tackle. Yep, I 100% agree. And that's what I was saying. If you've listened to me every day on Locked On Ravens, I kind of said this leading up to the start of free agency, is the tackle market and the tackle position is more of a premium position than guard is. And that's why I'm so shocked the guard market is as big as it is right now. So I think the Ravens will draft their tackle. This is a very deep tackle class. I think the Ravens can get a really quality option either in the first or the second round, which is, to me, really, really, really exciting. But to me, Henry is a guy that just takes pressure off of everybody. right? Not that Gus didn't do it, not that JK didn't do it, but Derrick Henry's a guy that defenses have to game plan for and spend a lot of time game planning for. It's the same thing with Lamar. In Tennessee, what were we talking about with Derrick Henry? It was number one priority. Stop Derrick Henry. If you stop Derrick Henry, you can win the game, because the wide receiver position was a question mark for most of Henry's tenure there. For the most part, they had some quality guys, obviously DeAndre last year, but then at quarterback, I mean, it was Ryan Tannehill, and obviously last year it was Will Levis. So the big thing was, okay, Derrick Henry's an elite running back. You stop Derrick Henry against Tennessee, you probably win the game or have at least a much better shot of winning that game. With the Ravens, it's all right. If you stop Derrick Henry and you stop the run game, focusing so much energy on, okay, where's Derrick Henry going to be? And plus, it's one-on-one matchups, right? You have to put a body on Derrick Henry, and you have to put a body on Lamar. So you're already stretching the defense, even if they stack the box more thin than it would have been, where for Gus Edwards, I'm sure teams were saying, okay, yeah, we have to make sure he is where he is, but we're confident we can bring him down for the most part. And I don't know why they were confident, because Gus was a really efficient runner and somebody that barely lost yards on his carries. But again, Derrick Henry is just another guy here. But in my opinion, the other big thing, and Cam says it right here, it's a great point. I lost the comment. There's so many comments coming in, but here we go. Cam says, key is they kept Henry healthy and not running him into the ground. Titans overused Henry. I agree. For Baltimore, you can't run him 300 times a season, right? You can't run him 300 times next year. What I think the Ravens are going to have over at Tennessee is they're not going to ask Derrick Henry to be a 30 carry per game guy. Now, obviously, you're going to give him more. Like, I expect Derrick Henry to be the running back one and pretty clearly above everybody else in the rotation. Not saying Keaton won't get touched when he gets back. Not saying that even a guy like, I don't know, I'm not even saying a guy like, who else would be on the route? I mean, a late round running back or even a Justice Hill. Like, those guys are still going to get touches. But in my opinion, you have to look at it from the perspective of, yeah, Derrick Henry's really good. He's a top running back. They paid him that money. But now you're going to ask him. Gus Edwards, I think the career high carries he had, I don't have the stats up next to me, but I think it was 191. And I think that was last season, if I'm not mistaken. If you have Derrick Henry up around that, late, like 175, 180, 190, 200, that to me is what I would personally do. Coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be talking more about how the Ravens can continue building, continuing to get in the chat in terms of what you're saying and how you're celebrating this move. Stay tuned. A lot to get to on this episode of Locked On Ravens Live. First, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And there are so many different things that therapy can bring to the table. And for example, what's the first thing you do if you had an extra hour in your day? Would you go for a run, take a nap, read a book, show up for a friend? A lot of us spend a life, especially when we had more time. The question is, time for what, though? If time was limited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special day in your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you know more of it. And therapy has so many different benefits, such as learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries. You can empower to become the best version of yourself, and it's just for those who've experienced major trauma. It's for everyone. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched to a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. We're back. Our final segment of Locked On Ravens Live here, talking about Derrick Henry and celebrating the Ravens signing Derrick Henry to a 2-year deal. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in live today. We do these every single time a Ravens big move happens. Be sure to turn notifications on YouTube. And if you don't catch them live, we do have them available both after the fact in video form and audio form, so you don't miss out on the bonus content. We do 5 days a week on Locked On Ravens plus that bonus content. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow along in audio form. Either way you prefer to watch or listen, even in the offseason, 5 days every single day. I've done 1,202 consecutive episodes of this dating back to 2019. So not planning on stopping anytime soon. Hopefully the Ravens aren't planning to stop anytime soon. They signed Derrick Henry. Hopefully the momentum continues. And I see LaMelo Ball celebrating. Is LaMelo Ball a Ravens fan? He said that the Ravens are going to the ship. And he said we. So I don't know. He might be a Ravens fan, but that would be good. But I see Mina Kimes saying Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell is the thunderous / lightningiest thunder and lightning pairing one could conceive of. And Spencer Schultz, friend of the show, said they're both lightning. That's what I'm saying. Derrick Henry has that element to him where he's not, again, the fastest running back in the league. But in my opinion, there is so much more to him than just, he's a north-south runner. He's a physical bruiser, right? I see Sedarian checking in saying, finally got a king at the castle. I'm loving it. I really wish the Ravens re-signed Patrick Queen just so I can say they have king and queen at the castle, and maybe they get like a guy who's named Prince, Isaiah Prince or something. King, Queen, Prince. That would be something. I see we have a lot in there. John, I don't see where everything's going on. I think that for Baltimore, there's a lot though with Derrick Henry in particular, where in my opinion, Baltimore was a team that a lot of people looked at and said, well, they were so good in the regular season and everything that goes on. There's a lot that you can do now because you improve the running game, you improve the overall floor and ceiling, in my opinion, of the offense. So I don't know. Baltimore, to me, has so much going for them right now. Now, they're not done. They're not done. They have to continue this momentum. Offensive line is huge. I'm sure they're going to be looking to add some sort of a veteran wide receiver, although that market's kind of crazy right now. So I don't know if it's going to be just a lesser veteran than go and draft. So in my opinion, wide receiver, offensive line, those are the last two positions you got to look at free agent wise for offense. Defense, edge is one I'm looking at. Inside linebacker just for potential. And in my opinion, you also look at corner. You also look at safety. They lose Ronald Darby and Geno Still, and those are two players you also have to figure out as well. So in my opinion, what Baltimore has is a 1-2 punch when Keaton Mitchell comes back healthy. Plus, don't want to disrespect Justice. Justice also in that conversation as well. I see Taquan checking in saying, I was a Titan fan since 1999. I'm a Raven now. Welcome in, Taquan. I appreciate you flipping over the fandom. Everybody's welcome here. I know we're excited to have Derrick Henry here in Baltimore. And I also see Baltimore get up saying we need a back like Henry. Lamar does nothing for the run game if you don't utilize it. I think Lamar in his own right does a lot for the run game, but I think what Derrick Henry does is he elevates it, right? He elevates what Baltimore has and gives you more nightmares if you're a defensive coordinator. Because in this position, what Baltimore has right now, you have to already game plan for Lamar, as I kind of talked about earlier in the show. But in my opinion, Baltimore has a lot of different things that, you're just talking about everything that Baltimore's done. They've lost 6 free agents and they've done a ton of different things where for Baltimore, there was a ton that they do. But in my opinion, I don't really know where else they could have gone at the running back position that would have given you a market. So I don't know. The Ravens have a lot of things that are going for them right now. And Derrick Henry, I think, is just like a cherry on top, but it should only be the start. They should be trying to add a lot more cherries to the sundae in terms of what's going on. So for Baltimore, and I see Baltimore football history saying, how does the upgrade and always number one run offense? It just increases the ceiling of the offense, right? The Ravens didn't need, Derrick Henry was not a necessity for the Ravens. But in my opinion, I just feel like for Baltimore, they could have been fine with Gus Edwards. They could have been fine with J.K. Dobbins. They could have been fine with the 4th round running back. They could have been fine with somebody else. But your willingness to go out there if you're the Ravens and sign a Derrick Henry to elevate the floor and the ceiling of the rushing offense gives you just so many different other options that make it just so much better, where you still could have had the number one rushing offense, right? There's no doubt in my mind that they could have with Gus and JK, but Derrick Henry, you're going to be comfortable there, and it opens up your passing game even more because now Baltimore is going to have to throw Derrick Henry out there, and other teams are going to say, well, now we have to worry about the play action game. Now I have to worry about this and the other. So there's just so much. And I see Derrick Henry, that'll cancel out a 6th round compensatory pick for the Ravens, but they've already lost so many guys that I don't really think that necessarily matters. They're going to get 4 regardless. But in my opinion, this is just incredible to me because Baltimore is a team that we know their potential. We know that Baltimore has everything going right for them, but they didn't have it going right for them when they needed it, right? They had everything going, and then all of a sudden they messed it up. And I see Kent saying all this just for the Ravens to go into a playoff game with the worst game plan imaginable. That's where it is. Everything was going so well for you for the Ravens, and then you just mess it up by running the ball 6 times with your running backs. You can't ignore, especially if you're investing this much into Derrick Henry, you can't ignore him, right? You can't put him on the side. Imagine first of all, the backlash would be even like 10 times worse than what it was in the AFC Championship game. And I see Cam saying this is bigger than the OBJ signing by a wide margin. Player-wise, yes. Money-wise, obviously not. But player-wise, yes. Odell is a superstar, international superstar. But Derrick Henry, this signing is bigger in terms of the player that Derrick Henry still is. Both are older, but Derrick Henry is still a guy, is he prime Derrick Henry. Maybe he's a little step below that, but in my opinion, I don't know. I see John saying now trade for Debo. I'd have to look at Debo's contract. I don't know if San Francisco trades him this year. It could be next year, but there are so many different avenues for the Ravens that they can explore now. I think that, I see Sean Merriman, Maryland great, Chargers, linebackers, and how did the running back position get devalued so much? We're talking, we've seen the running back contracts kind of stay, there's no inflation on those, right? So that the quarterback contracts up, wide receiver contracts up, everything going up. Running back contracts have stayed the same. And it has allowed teams to get players, good running backs for cheap. And the Ravens got a good running back here for cheap in Derrick Henry. Now, not cheap compared to, the position in general, right? You're seeing a lot of guys on smaller contracts, but essentially, what if I told you the Ravens could get Derrick Henry for the same amount that Tony Pollard got and the same amount that DeAndre Swift got? Who would you have chosen? $8 million, $8 million, $8 million, or one at 8.5? $8 million, $8 million, 8.5. Derrick Henry's one of the $8 millions. I'm taking Derrick Henry 10 times out of 10, right? He's by far and away the better player than those two guys, and those two got bigger, if not the same deal there. So that to me, I see Betty asking if the rumor's true about the Seahawks and Queen. I haven't kept up a ton on Twitter as I've been doing this, but I'm sure there is. I've seen Queen get rumored to the Panthers. That's one. The Seahawks is another. I saw rumblings about the Dolphins potentially. So Queen, I don't expect him back. Sedarian saying, now we got to see what the Ravens cut and restructure, get this deal done for sure. Clifton, Kev, it's now 12 versus 11. The Mike linebackers playing in wet concrete. Yeah, that's where it is. For the Ravens offense, such a big part of this is decision-making, right? Where with the read options, you always tend to favor Lamar, right? You say, who's the bigger threat? Is it Lamar or is it Gus Edwards? Is it Lamar or is it J.K. Dobbins, right? You tend to favor Lamar and you tend to lean that way a little bit, right? You say, okay, Lamar, I'm going to lean Lamar's way on those RPOs and those read options. But now with Derrick Henry, it's like, Mike's like, I don't know who the heck to choose, right? Because it's that big of a deal. So in my opinion, for Baltimore, you add Derrick Henry to this offense with Lamar, it's over. Just I don't know how you stop it. Now I'm sure teams will come up with certain ways to slow it down. And I'm not saying it's gonna, touchdown every single carry, not gonna happen. But this is a major improvement, and I'm really excited for this 100%. Now I'll round it out with Cam here. In EDC, we trust every dollar count, 1,000%. This is a big move for the Ravens, big move for Eric DeCosta. I'm excited for it, 1,000%. So I have you here today on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll be right back here, whether it's 6 a.m. tomorrow or the Ravens make another move. We'll be right back here, maybe live later today. Be sure to subscribe in YouTube, audio form, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, actually, Felix says, feel sorry for Geno Stone right about now. Geno Stone going up against Derrick Henry might not be a pretty matchup. But we'll be right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens or later today, talking more Ravens and, of course, talking more Derrick Henry. Be sure to subscribe, follow along, video form, audio form. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.